Hello and welcome to another edition of Knickerbocker Banter. I'm your host, as always, Harris Bouchard, episode 2, season 2. We have a very special guest with us today, Zach Tous. Thank you for joining us tonight, brother.
You are absolutely welcome, my friend. I couldn't be happier.
And listen, I talk about the support all the time, but you are somebody that when I was doing the voice notes and, just starting up, and talking about doing this, very encouraging. So, I always appreciate that from you. You always text me back a big paragraph, giving me the feedback on everything. So, you're a brother and you're a basketball lifer like myself. So I know we're going to enjoy this conversation.
Absolutely. My pleasure to help you. It's nice. It actually passes time when I'm, say I'm on the train and you give me something to dissect or dive into. It kills time for me too. So I appreciate the help in that regards.
Yep. And we coach together, right, at Empire and shout out to Empire Youth Athletics. We've had Derek on here and, we go back our relationship into college. But when I talk to somebody, I know that they live this. I know that they breathe it. I know that basketball is a big, big part of your life, and a diehard Knicks fan that is taking a deep breath, right? There's a lot of stuff being talked about this team right now that, over the first week of the season, I knew it would happen with the microscope, but we're seeing it now more than we've been accustomed to because of the expectation on this group.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's, going into the season, obviously very, very, very big expectations for us. I'm sorry. And then, you can't jump to quick conclusions with, and how things go as you see with the home opener, and then it's a total 180 with game 2. So you got to take it with a grain of salt and try to be patient, because it's not going to all be, it's not going to all be beautiful from the jump. So you just got to take it with a grain of salt and have some patience with, trust the process with it. The team put together is something assembled that we can back. And Leon Rose has done a hell of a job so far, so he hasn't given us any reason to doubt, as I would say.
Yep, and I agree with everything you just said, except the terminology on trust the process, because our friends in Philadelphia tried to use that terminology. I'm not obviously the biggest Embiid fan. Nobody in New York is, but you touched on the opener, and I went on the lives and discussed it. It was the opponent for me, and it's their ring night. We wanted to spoil it. There was a lot of hype around it, and the Knicks laid an egg, and the Celtics made 29 threes. They should have set the NBA record. That the way that they were shooting at the end of that game was ridiculous. They were trying to hoist as many as they possibly could.
Absolutely.
But Tatum came out a little chip on his shoulder. I joked about blaming that on Steve Kerr because the Olympic summer that Tatum had. But if they were to go out on opening night and lose to the Pistons, maybe I would have said, all right, that's not the ideal situation. But the fact that it was the defending champs, a team that's going to win 60 again this year, a team that lost 4 times on their home floor last season, that was where I said, all right, guys, everyone's got to just take it easy and allow these guys to gel these first few weeks before we jump to any kind of conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I would think every Knicks fan would want to spoil, I guess, ring night on opening night for the defending champions, let alone being the Boston Celtics. So going in there is always tough to play. The Boston Garden's always hard, always difficult to play in that place. I've never had the pleasure of being there, but I hear it's crazy. Yeah, and it's a total switch to game 2, and then you see how the energy switched. The Garden was jumping.
Yep.
But you can't dwell on those. It's a long season. It's early days in the season, so you got to put it past you. I tell my guys, I was coaching basketball, you have to have a very, very short memory.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to learn from the losses, let it go with some of them, and just push on, move to the next one.
I trust what the Knicks have built. I trust what they've built. I trust their leadership, and obviously Brunson, it starts with Tibbs. But you talked about it. They turned the page, right? The ugly opener. The only positive, and we'll get to McBride in a second because he deserves a ton of praise for, again, what a lot of basketball people that follow the game could tell is who really got better in the offseason, who worked on their game. And, he comes in and looks very prepared, very ready and we'll get to his leadership and all that in a second. But the home opener, and I love the emotion because I want to lead with Bridges. And he's, just to keep it PG on this show, right? Some of the language that he was using after some of those shots, I'm not going to quote him, but you kind of tell that he, in the age of social media and the age of podcasting, and we're guilty of it too, these players know everything and they see everything. Some of them, and Steph Curry has alluded to this at halftime, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. You're looking at your phone, but Mikal Bridges came out and said, listen, guys, I can play basketball. I don't care about what you're saying about my shot. I'm going to figure this out. And he gets into the mid-range and he looks comfortable. He dunks in transition. He makes a couple threes in the second half. Bridges, I think, really needed that, especially in his first game at home. And it really felt good for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for being even a Knicks fan, I'm a huge Mikal Bridges fan. Huge one. And at the end of the day, you can, obviously game one is you get a bit worried and a bit like what's going on here, because going into the preseason, you see those little videos of like the hitch in the shot. But at the end of the day, this guy, he's a professional and an utmost professional. So they're going to get the job done. I think the stat is I think he's only missed one game or something. I don't even know what.
He hasn't missed a game as a pro yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy, he's going to get the job done. And I think he fits in that shot thing. He's going to figure that out. Whether it's just a fluke or something that we're just not accustomed to seeing, because we expect something up, like it to come in and like it flow very freely, like he's been, because his first year in Brooklyn was, he shot it. I think he jumped up 8 points in his point per game. So I think everyone needs to just relax with it, and Bridges will be just fine.
Yep. And you know what? I don't want to call this person out, but I think this perfectly describes the first week of New York Knicks basketball. I got a text from someone that's going to remain nameless that he sent the eyeball emoji after Bridges struggled in the first half of the Boston game, because he told me over the offseason that he's not sold on Bridges. So then in game 2, I sent the eyeball emoji back, and he said, whoa, it's just game 2. And I said, well, after game 1, sorry, not even just game 1, because he did make some shots in the second half of Boston, these fans that are just living and dying by each quarter to an extent now that I don't think I've ever seen before. And I told you, it comes with the expectation, but to me, that's no way to go about it. And the proof is in his work. I understand people, the release and all this other stuff, but it was just really nice to him to go out. He even had the moment where he points to Halliburton to get him off me. Listen, we don't necessarily want to be the most trash-talking team in the league, but sometimes you got to talk your stuff. Sometimes you got to play with the level of confidence to be a top-tier team in the association. And just to watch Bridges do that, he had the motion, like, the thumb thing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I'm like, this guy's ready to go now. He's ready to prove to the entire fan base and the league that this is still Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, he's as they say, he's a dog, and he's he's going to accept that role every night, I think, of keeping the standard that he's been at. So hopefully it continues on an upwards trend, because I'm excited to see the continued growth from this unit to gel, which, coming in, bringing in obviously the Villanova boys, and obviously DiVincenzo not staying with the group, which is, part of the game. But I'm excited to see how off the ball Mikal is. And then hopefully when they figure out like rotations and stuff, Mikal can get that maybe even second unit, more of the on-ball handling opportunity that I guess we saw, like when Tibbs had it, when Brunson went out, Randall had that opportunity with the second unit to lead it. Or it was Brunson, but either or had that more of a role when one went to the bench with the minutes wise.
Absolutely. And Bridges, maybe getting some run with that second unit and getting a chance to, take more shots. But something we didn't get to see a lot of in game 1, because, listen, the Celtics just made everything.
Yeah.
We brought Bridges in to guard as well. And he's another one of those guys. He's dynamic, right? And you could get him on a Halliburton. He might spend a possession on Neesmith. He might if you needed him to, right, he's going to try to guard the fours if he has to, right? But
Yeah.
not as physical as Anunoby, but he definitely played a role in holding Halliburton to 0 points the other night. And that's always fun to watch because Halliburton's one of those guys that tried to embrace that villain, Reggie Miller reincarnated, right? He comes into the Garden last year and takes a game 7 from us. So anytime he comes in and lays a goose egg, literally, I'm always going to be happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to know, especially being a basketball nut, is when we have this team and there's no true, like, say, dominant center, that the starting lineup, like, say, like with McHale, OG, Josh Hart, and Cat, they could switch that 1 through, say, 5 if there's no dominant presence physicality-wise, because OG can guard 1 through 4 easily. Even some 5 sometimes. He showed it last year in the playoffs. Guarding, switching out to a banged-up Embiid, but still did it. So I'm excited for that, like, defensive prowess where they're able to switch everything. Brunson, I think it will help with that the defensive part too, but those guys just alleviate so much pressure. So much pressure. And you can see it now, especially if you actually really watch game 2, Harris. Even Cat, like Tibbs, and that's what Tibbs does. He brings out another level, I guess, of intensity. But even Cat, who's been a pretty darn good defender by his own standard, he's even flying a little bit faster. He's getting off the floor higher, jumping, trying to get blocks, more engaged, I would say, on the defensive effort. Now, we're only 2 games in, so still, but I still like especially with game 2 to a team, Indiana, that they led the NBA in scoring list.
Yeah. How about this little nugget for you? I told myself one of my goals this year was to not be too stat oriented, but I got to drop this one for you. The Pacers had 98 the other night. Do you have any idea what their low number was last season, in the regular season?
107, I'll guess.
Oh, 99 was their lowest number, and they were held to 98 in game 2. So obviously it's a good sign. Anytime you could hold Indiana down like they did, and the energy was there, and Madison Square Garden home opener, wanted to play well. It's just a good feeling because I was coaching that night. So I came out in third quarter when I first checked the score. Didn't expect us to be up by 30, but the party was on, and we didn't let our foot off the gas. And now we head into the second week of the season with, that under our belt.
Yeah, I was kind of ticked off too because the first 2 games of the season I haven't been able to watch, which has been unfortunate because of coaching. So
we have to watch them back. We don't see them live. We have to watch them back.
Yeah, I have to DVR them, which kind of sucks. But still, though, when you lose by 20 plus one game, and then the next game you win by 20 plus, it's DVRing is not, I guess, worth it. As they
yeah. You go back and I'm a nut. I'm sitting there watching replays over and over and post games and trying to pick up little tidbits from people. But you mentioned Cat and the effort being contagious there. Let's talk about Bodega Cat. They're calling him now. He has a nice opener, and he makes.
I heard that.
You haven't heard the Bodega?
No.
Well, the Josh Hart listed a bunch of nicknames, and some of them were weird. He's like the Big Meow, which you'll never. I'm not referring to him as that.
They got
and all. Yeah, whatever. Listen, Cat's a great nickname anyway. But in his first home game as a Knick, he does some nice things early, and I love when he catches the ball 12 to 15 feet from the rim. He has a couple of dribbles, and then he's able to go, with his right or his left. He's good around the rim. And to have a center, and to have a center that could step out, shoot the 3, which he did a couple of times. He made a couple threes, one in the first quarter, one in the second. The one in the second was right at the end of the half, which is great. He hit his little shimmy, which was awesome.
He did.
And then, that was great. And then for him to be able to score off an offensive rebound, and then the dunk, which was awesome. That became the highlight of the night, right? That broken play.
Yeah.
He seems that he's going to he's not really a guy that you have to worry about when it comes to chemistry. He doesn't necessarily need it ISO, throw it to him. All right, we got to get it to Cat. But when he does get his touches, it's nice that he made the most of it the other night.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, for him scoring, I think he scores at all 3 levels.
Yeah.
And he scores it at a high clip. So it's nice for him. You just don't want him, I guess, as they like to settle, just standing at the 3-point line or being one-dimensional, which I don't think there might be times in this long season that he does that it will happen, but I think as this team continues to figure out what works best, what's the niches are, who works best with what like that's why Mikhail, you could tell like when there's a drive, he's cutting those angles right. Like him and OG do a real and Josh Hart do a really good job of timing their cuts perfectly. And then the Cat does a really good job of finding those spaces and those gaps to operate into while Jalen does his job, does his business handling the ball.
How about the clip the other night, too? And I know you love this because I've played with you a few times. I know how you talk about the game, and I know how you coach the game. The spacing, right?
Yeah.
And for Cat to step out, and I've touched on this a couple times, but to see it in action the other night when Brunson makes that vintage fake, where it looks like he's gonna, where it looks like you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like he kind of lifts his body up, and it looks like he's gonna cut in the other direction, and he's got this down pat. And then he moves the ball to the other hand, or whatever he does with the fake spin.
Yeah.
And then he's moving towards the rim. And to see Miles Turner on this play, standing at the three-point line, was a breath of fresh air. Absolutely. Because something that the Knicks offense, as well as it had worked at times last year, has really never had that, where they could really, truly drag the shot blocker away from the rim and have more uncontested looks for their guards.
Yeah, and that's the difference of having, say, like a Mitch, like a Michelin, or when Hartstein was there too. Like they're great at like crashing, getting those offensive rhythms, but having that spacing where we're driving the big out, those driving lanes are just wide open, and it's gonna get even easier and easier as these guys figure out playing together more and more. But that's a good thing for us as well. We have to just continue to grow and try to figure out, because the next thing is obviously is figuring out, which we'll get to talk to, is like the bench and who's gonna come in and fit, who's gonna know their role and play their role, and how do they fit in with, because it's not always easy. It's a long season, injuries happen, stuff like that happens. You get guys back, and so that's probably the next. That's what I think they're thinking long term and ahead of time. So hopefully they're rolling with that and trying to figure out that for us.
Definitely. And you touched on the bench. And the first guy now that needs to be mentioned,
man.
First guy that, especially in the regular season, right? When you have that look, the long haul. So the first guy that has to be talked about, and I've posted this on my stories on Instagram, that I did not think we would see.
I already know what you're gonna say. You're gonna to talk about.
Well, Deuce McBride, by the way, his offense and his confidence. Me and my dad would always argue. I said, listen, I love Deuce. I love his energy. I love his effort.
Yeah.
He's hurting early on in his career, and it was too early to say this. His offense was a little behind, and he needed some time. And what he's been able to turn himself into, the dog mentality and the effort that he's put in, and the contract that the Knicks have him under right now.
Yeah.
Because if you remember correctly, when they dropped quickly to the Raptor trade, and then right away signed Deuce to this $4 or $5 million deal, whatever it was.
I think it was legit right away.
Right, I know, but some people were saying, why are we giving Deuce McBride $4 million? That was a narrative. That was a legitimate narrative. Why are we giving Deuce McBride money? Is he going to be what it quickly was? And what he has turned himself into. And then we'll talk about the Huck Porty moment when he was talking about, earning your minutes. And
I love that.
That is awesome from him. What a moment for that culture and for what the Knicks are building. To me, the basketball part was great, but that is probably the highlight.
Yeah. Because
it kind of speaks volumes. Not kind of. Definitely speaks volumes to the development and the maturation of Deuce McBride.
Yeah, and I'll say it now. Guy for our team. And like the growth of his game, as you said before, but like it's if you watch basketball enough and you're around it enough and you love it enough, like when you don't necessarily like focus on stars of basketball, and you kind of try to like take a step back and see all these guys like the work that they put in and how much they mean on a daily basis for each team. It is, because the role guys and the bench guys, like they're so important for a NBA team. They really are. And it's not just the Knicks, it's all these teams. They play a pivotal role, and they impact the game. Like whether that's why like it's not just the first or the fifth guy. It's 1 through 8, 9, 10. They're just as important.
Mm-hmm.
To not like, because a lot of people don't know what it goes to, what they do on a daily basis. The like the notoriety they don't get, or the work you don't see, or but even what you were going to bring up before, like, which I love too, like his leadership with guys that are, they're not the leadership that he has with all his teammates is astonishing too. Just to see it, like even that video that they captured of him talking to who was what was
Porty.
Yeah, unbelievable. Just not wasting minutes, seizing your opportunity, because that goes a long way with coaches, a long way.
Yep. And that's because, and I said this to a ton of people when that first happened. This is no knock on the Hornets and Wizards and teams that are young and still getting better. But when you have built something that the Knicks have built, and you have players such as Brunson, Hart, now even Bridges, and Cat as an NBA veteran, you're able to, hey, whatever these guys pass down to Deuce is what now Deuce could start. Hey, I was in your shoes a couple of years ago, right? And that relatability and that ability to connect with your teammates is some of the stuff that I think the average fan might not necessarily think about too often. But, and again, I never claimed to be inside an NBA huddle. We both only played on the college level, but it's just one of those things where it goes a long way in building the rapport. Yeah, you got, yeah, you have to.
Because it's those little things they do. I think I'm repeating myself with it, but it's especially for me and how I am. I love those are the kind of players that I love, especially when our team that has the expectations of being so good. Yep. Those moments that aren't captured, and then now nowadays everything's captured.
Yep.
But those are so impactful for his growth, who he talks to's growth, coach's growth, all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a breath of fresh air to see that's his mindset now in his career. As he's still trying to earn minutes, and he wants more of a role too. But I think he understands what his role is, how his role can impact the Knicks, which is going to be big for this upcoming season.
Yeah,
and I'm very happy that he's in this position in his career. Yeah, I'm very, very thankful that he's doing what he's doing and trying to be more of a leader as well.
Reliable. You feel good about him when he steps on the floor. He's 11 of 14 in the first two games, including 6 of 7 from 3. So he's obviously playing with a ton of confidence, and hopefully he makes that push to be in contention for, I know it's early with the 6-minute award, but you start thinking, hey, we're on a good team. Maybe he could average that 13, 14, 15 a game and put his name in that hat.
You know what you don't see him do very often? You don't see him take many bad shots. You don't. You might see one or two, but you don't see him because he's an athletic. McBride is very athletic.
Oh, yeah, he's got bounce. He's got serious bounce. He
does.
Yeah.
But, he's one of those guys, as we said, I think this might be the third or fourth time we said in this podcast.
Yeah.
He's a dog, man.
Well,
and you want dogs on your team.
Yeah, he was frustrated after opening night. I loved his comments on opening night. Hey, we got to be better. It's not acceptable. And that's the sentiments that a lot of the Knicks have shared. But touching on the injury bug quick, because, obviously with Precious and Robinson and Shabbat, who we'll talk about the G League draft in a couple moments. But
yeah, I just watched something on that too.
Yeah, so Shabbat and Matt Ryan, we'll get to it. But with McBride, he's got the knee extension. So he's going to be, they say, probable. And then Josh Hart, who, to touch on Josh quickly, looked like himself the other night. And that was nice to see, right? Josh Hart, when he gets a defensive rebound and pushes the ball in transition, is one of my favorite plays that the Knicks have. It's Josh Hart, the one-man wrecking crew after he gets a defensive rebound. But he was bothered by the hamstring, it looked like. He was holding at the back of his leg the other night.
Yeah.
Now is the ankle impingement is what they're reporting. So, again, we need the health. My motto of the year is be healthy in April, but you also don't want to limp around with, 5 guys in your rotation and then rely on some guys that aren't ready to play NBA basketball at the back end of your rotation.
Yeah, so he's a workhorse, which you love too. And, was scary seeing that game too. I mean, I think there was an extended 2 minutes or 3 minutes where he was just grabbing that hamstring. So I was worried watching. I thought it was a hamstring.
Yeah,
I thought that's what it was.
He probably was grabbing at that and then the ankle.
Yeah, he played through it, and then as you told me, ankle impingement, which I haven't heard that word since my playing days.
You had a few too many impingements.
Yeah. So, but like like you just said, you gotta, so hopefully that doesn't affect us or him going forward. And moving on. But even injuries are gonna happen, so you want to be healthy in April. But like with deep teams and teams that are gonna want to be where they're at the end of the year, you need guys to step up, next man up mentality, as they say.
Definitely.
So and we're I think we got some guys who can impact it, because any game could be anyone's day. And
here's the benefit of it. If let's say Josh Hart misses a game or two, you hope he doesn't, but if he does and McBride sits, and you find out a little bit about what you have in other players, right? And if you want to build this magical season, you're going to probably have to get a stretch of 5 games from Dadier, or a couple performances from Kolek when other guys go down, because the reality is, outside of Mikal Bridges showing that he's been the Iron Man of the NBA, we know that Brunson has played 70, 72, so he'll miss a handful. We know Cat might miss a handful of games, and other players. So unfortunate to look at that news today, because 2 games into the season, it's not something I really want to read, but like you said, it could be an opportunity for others, and it's a next man up mentality. The Knicks have embodied that over the last couple seasons. It's not when guys are probable and questionable and they're not out. That's also something that you could be feeling not so bad about.
Perfect example. Just to go off that is Precious last year.
Yeah,
went on a run of 10 games or 11 games, 12 games, whatever it was. I think I was at 2 of those games at home where he just impacted the game entirely with his energy, his defense, his just in his entire game impacted games completely. That helped us get some wins that were needed, and any day could be next guy up, next day is anyone's, to help us win.
Definitely. And talk about the bench again, because I don't want to go this podcast without mentioning campaign, because I put a poll out there at the beginning of the season. And I said, who will have a bigger impact on the Knicks year? This was in the midst of the summer, because I wanted to see if people were going to get caught up so much in this Kolek hype, which, listen, I like Tyler Kolek, but I think people forgot that Cam Payne has been in the NBA for a while.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, Cam Payne is a veteran. He's been on some good teams. Sorry, I gotta take a drink of water. You might have to finish my campaign point here.
He's been on a couple teams, and he's the man has earned minutes in the NBA.
Yeah.
So can shoot it, can score in bunches. And I think he's a Thibodeau kind of guy.
Yeah, I was going through some we both work in schools, and
that's why we got people on the podcast.
You know what's been going around lately, right? That
these kids in these schools, man.
I can't believe, knock on wood, I've stayed relatively healthy, but
you
might have to put me on the report soon.
The IR.
Yeah. No, I love Payne though. That moment, one of my favorite moments of the game the other day was when Cam Payne got that stop, and he cut him off. He cut another guy. I think it was Neesmith or somebody. Cut him off. The ball trickled out of bounds, whatever. And Cam Payne's really fired up about it. And he cares about both ends. And obviously, people on Thibodeau's teams have to, or they won't play.
Yeah.
But to see him show that kind of emotion, I think people kind of underestimated what he could bring. And back to my poll point, I said, who's going to have more of an impact on the season, Kolek or Payne? And 70% said Kolek, not realizing that Cam Payne was brought here to play 15, 20 minutes a game right off the bat.
Yeah. I think maybe people answered that question a little bit too quick, because Kolek did have a fantastic preseason.
And Summer League, too, and all that.
And that's what I meant. Summer League and into the preseason. More Summer League, actually, was what I was getting at, where he played majority of the minutes. But Thibodeau is more of a veteran kind of, if you've been in the league and have paid your dues, he kind of rolls with you at first. He's not a kind of coach that's going to roll out Kolek to start. And I do like Kolek. I'm a UConn guy, so obviously I'm not a big fan of Kolek all of us getting him because he's from Marquette. But you got to love his game. He looked great in the preseason. I think there's there's something there for us to maybe having this, maybe a small window for him to show what he's got. And I think he looks like he has that kind of swag and game to him. And so I'm excited to see it maybe down the road, whenever he gets that opportunity. I think he'll seize that opportunity. I see that in him. But Thibodeau, knowing the kind of coach he is, he's going to roll with Payne, and Payne's not going to disappoint. I got that feeling with it.
Yeah, I think he's got the it factor in terms of fitting in with this group and the identity of this group. And like you said, it's one of those guys that's earned it. And when I look for filling in a roster and playing 10 to 15, 20 minutes a game, I love bringing in players, because the Knicks tried in the middle of the season last year. They brought in players such as Bogdanovich and Burks that were on a losing team.
Yeah.
And I love bringing in a guy. Payne was on the Sixers last year. We know what they did. A couple of years ago, he was on that Suns team that made the finals, and he was playing 15, 20 minutes. Here's a guy that's used to and expects to win and has played a role in that. Now, you're not going to get 20 points a night, obviously, even 15, but to get that 8 or 9 on timely baskets and for him to be focused on the game plan just seems like a pro, and seems like a guy that is going to be able to get the job done in the role that they have him in.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And you go from there, then we have to keep going down the bench, I think, with the Knicks, because he's definitely a piece that we're excited for. McBride, so we got McBride, we got Payne. Hopefully we got the man Precious back, which he'll be impact the game for us too. He will help.
Well, let me talk about the G League draft for 1 second.
Oh, please! I'm so sorry. Yeah. Please talk about that.
Well, that's because we only got a few minutes, but we'll with the G League draft and what they did. Now, I would be the first one to admit it. What I do and don't know, and this was not something I was very familiar with. That the Westchester Knicks could take Landry Shamet in the G League draft, so that the Knicks can now kind of oversee his rehab, and they are interested in bringing him back to play for the big ball club. And then that was the second pick. They had the first and second pick. Don't ask me how that even happened.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but they have that first pick, and they took Matt Ryan, who shot 45% from 3 in 20-plus games for the Pelicans last year, the 6'6" shooter. So maybe bringing in those guys to solidify that bench. But you might know a little bit more than me in terms of this draft stuff.
So right before we were talking, I obviously I was trying to do my homework and be a little more knowledgeable of that.
Yeah.
I saw a video, and I wish I wrote it down for us. But one of our, analytical statistics guy who's a outstanding behind the scenes kind of guy with the numbers. He does I wish I had the name for you. I would sound like a smart one here, but he does a very good job of making sure like the cap for us isn't above the first or the second apron. And they did a good job, because Shamet was one of those guys who we signed, and we weren't able to sign Matt Ryan contract-wise because we had to pay Shamet, and he was looking so the G League draft, I think we made a trade with the team to get the first and second pick from someone, which gave us that opportunity to draft Shamet and Matt Ryan first and second overall. There's more behind that. I did see the video. I wish I had a good memory with that kind of stuff, but we were able to keep him, like you just said, and then hopefully get Matt Ryan, which can fit in as well, because he is actually a sharp shooting someone from the Pelicans he's playing for.
Yep. Yeah. He made a ton of shots. So we'll see if, he was one of those guys that I looked at on Basketball Reference. He was making 2 a game. So shooting 40-something, he was getting 4 or 5 attempts up,
45%.
Making 2. So hopefully he could play that role that the Knicks wanted, like Bogdanovich, to play last year. Come in for 15 minutes and not necessarily the best defender in the world, but another floor spacer. You can never have enough shot makers in the NBA. Make or miss league.
Yeah. No, 100%.
We need more guys to make.
You do, and that's you got to be in this day and age. You got to be a specialist in your role, as they say. So Matt Ryan is definitely one of those. But if it fits, it fits. You got to figure it out. So hopefully that works out for us. We can't pray for it, but shooting always helps, because if you want to match the Celtics, and that's the ultimate goal in the East. You know what I mean?
No question. That's the motto. Well, we do it. We're going to have, obviously, an episode come out every Monday. And so the week ahead, and we will take a look at the Knicks' next 3 games and not necessarily a prediction, but just giving you the road and what the week of basketball is going to look like for the Knicks as they go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, they'll host the Cavs. Right? The Cavs have gotten off to a hot start. They haven't played anybody really tough, but they're scoring. They scoring a ton of points, so that'll be a fun one at the Garden on Monday. And Wednesday, they're at Miami, and that's always a fun one, right? Butler, Adebayo, they're not necessarily the team they've been, but you know what they're always capable of, and they always seem to play the Knicks tough, and so that'll be a fun one as well. A couple, again, playoff teams from last year. That's a common theme. 4 straight games of Eastern Conference playoff teams last year, and then they get the game at Detroit on Friday, which to me, the Knicks are at the point now where, yes, it's going to happen once in a while, but when you get the Detroits and Washingtons and Charlottes and the Nets and the lower teams, if you play them all a group of, let's say it's 10, 12 games, you got to lose 1 or 2 of those. I know that. You're at the point now where you shouldn't drop many of those. So the Knicks will be on the road twice, and they got another game Monday at the Garden versus the Cavaliers.
Well, so this week, I'm actually very excited, Harris, for it, because obviously 3-0 Cavs rolling in, which would be nice to play, get a win there. Take care of big business in there because they think that they're a competition for us. So if we make a statement there, that's nice. Heat's always fun to watch against the Knicks too. I believe the Heat play the Pistons too on Monday night tomorrow, which is nice.
Yeah, you get the teams that you're playing, right? That game.
Yeah, and the Pistons did, even though you need to kind of win those kind of games. The Pistons look good. They played the Celtics the other night. They almost squeaked that one out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got Pistons do play the Heat on Monday. You're correct on that.
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw. But the Pistons, we should handle them and win those games. But anyone can beat anyone on any given night, so you can't be too relaxed.
No question. Yeah. So the Knicks, just obviously giving even like a further look ahead. After their game on Monday at MSG, they're going at Miami, at Detroit, at Houston, at Atlanta. So nice little 4-game road trip.
And then we got the Bucks, I believe, coming up in
they'll host the Bucks. So again, the Bucks, the Pacers, the Cavs, the Heat, the Pacers, right? You get all those East foes, and again, if you look up, it's at a 5-5 or 6-4 record. You're not going to get me pushing any type of panic button, but I really like the way we looked the other night, and I hope the guys continue to gel. And, the hope is always 3-0 for a week or 4-0, whatever it is, but you just want to see them continuously getting familiar with one another and putting together strong efforts.
So, the one thing I wanted to say to you with it, now that we're talking about schedule, is the week that I looked at when the schedule came out, I was looking at it, and obviously game 1 and 2, and now we're talking about the schedule, which I think we'll get more of a feel for our Knicks when we get to the middle of November. We have our first back-to-back. We have a busy week after you got Pacers again. After that Bucks game, we got the Pacers again. Now that I'm looking at it, we got the Pacers again. Busy week, 11-10. So November 10th. And then we got our first back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. We got the 76ers, who will be there in Philly, the 12th, and then we got our first back-to-back against the Bulls. So we got to go Philly, then Chicago for our Knicks. Yeah, it's a busy week. Then we got a Friday game. So
listen,
back-to-back, I believe.
You have
home and home. We got.
Yeah,
so you have busy little. Oh no, we got the Nets home for 2 in a row, actually.
Well, yeah, you have. You might have memorized the November schedule. You're better.
Did I?
Yeah, no, you're good. You might have memorized the November schedule, but and then the in-season tournament will start with that game against the Sixers. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself with all that stuff.
I think that was my fault.
No, listen. You're excited about the Knicks.
Yeah, I am.
And by the way, before we close, I wanted to shout out the Friends sweatshirt, right? I don't know if anyone knows what I'm referring to, but this is the one that Rachel would wear, I think, a little bit in some of the episodes if we have some Friends fans out there. So wanted to quickly shout out the attire. But yeah, man, this was awesome. A lot of fun.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. That's sorry to cut you off again. I thank you enough for it. It's nice. I was a little nervous, but now that we're just shooting the shit, I guess. Excuse my language, I'm allowed to curse a little bit, but
you're fine. Chris Childs did, so you can.
Okay, I thank you. I'll do it. but I'm happy. I'm excited for you. Actually, this is a good thing I think you got going here. So I'm really for you, for the Knicks, for me being a part of it. Hopefully, continue to be a part of it. So I feel it. I'm feeling good for you, I would say.
No, and you, as I said in the beginning of the program, and I'll close with this, you, amongst a few other people, have motivated me to bring out the best and to, watch the extra tape or to, take my notes and treat this the way that it deserves to be treated and to bring people together. And I threw you in the chat, you started in our Knicks chat this season, and to bring walks of life together and to, have the watch party coming up and all this exciting stuff revolving around our Knicks is something of a dream come true. I don't take it for granted. People said, "Oh, do you make this money? Do you do this?" And I said, to me, it has nothing to do with that. It's great that if one day it becomes that, but for now, to be able to talk this team, people that care about it, and I love it. I said to you, the 30-something minutes flies by. You can talk about this forever, and I can wake up at 6 a.m. and go to bed at 12 and talk basketball the entire day. And so to turn this into something and to continue to create momentum and for people like you to be behind it and send me the messages that you've sent, it's meant everything, and it will continue to mean everything as we go forward in a very exciting chapter of Knicks basketball.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Harris. You're the man.
Of course, Tous. And listen, to everybody out there, Knickerbocker Banter Nation, if I could say, enjoy the games this week, and we will talk to you soon.